Welcome back to Jedi Enclave. I am Daniel.
I'm Chris. And do not adjust your television. This is indeed the Jedi Enclave Presents the Now This Is Podcasting podcast.
Yes, our weekly podcast about all things Star Wars. And if you see me right now on the camera looking off into space, it's because I'm very nervously watching my PC.
Because this is definitely the first time we've done this tonight.
Yeah. Just like with every challenge we've ever had with this, it's always like it's always a different problem, and that I've never seen before.
Well, I mean, you've accounted for all the problems you've seen before.
Yeah,
that's why they don't keep happening.
It's always a new problem, and I just don't know what to do. Anyway, it doesn't matter. You don't care about that. This is our podcast, weekly podcast, and we actually have Star Wars stuff we're talking about tonight, which is a lot of fun, but also some Severance season 2 episode 7, which was kind of a banger, and I cannot wait to get to it. Invincible season 3 episode 6. Which was also, I've been having a lot of fun with it.
Well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions.
Yes. And by the way, go follow us on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitch, and Discord, and Blue Sky. All of those links are in the description. And then after this, we're playing Battlefront with Ben from Britain and one of the guys from Gremlin Squad. So that'll be fun. Come and check that out. We'd love to have you. And I think we're just going to get off to the races here because we actually have news, and we actually have, I don't know how long I'm going to talk about Severance tonight. It might be 7 hours.
Yeah.
So I'm very sorry. First of all, Ryan Gosling. Okay, so we reported on this. We didn't report. We're not reporters.
We don't report shit.
We're not
we
journalists.
comment at the best.
But there was this thing going around about Ryan Gosling being in a Star Wars movie, and well, turns out that is true.
Oh, nice.
And it's been confirmed by Kathleen Kennedy, who we will talk about a little bit later in a couple seconds. But he's definitely in a Star Wars movie that's being directed by Deadpool and Wolverine director Sean Levy.
Yep.
When the details we get from this is that the movie will take place 5 or 6 years after The Rise of Skywalker. It'll follow, the release schedule will be after Mandalorian and Grogu, which I think they're eyeing like a May 2026 release for this.
I think I remember that being next year.
Yeah. But they're looking apparently at a cast of mostly new characters, but they're gonna have some sequel trilogy characters return, which obviously they're gonna have Rey return probably.
Although this is not the Rey movie,
right? That's the Charles Mangold film, right? I think that's a different thing. That's kind of neat. The Ryan Gosling thing is, I
like Ryan Gosling.
So do I. And in fact, do you think do you think that they're kind of counting on Ryan Gosling to save Star Wars, or is he there just because he looks really hot in space?
I think they're always looking for someone to save Star Wars if you're the kind of person who thinks that Star Wars needs to be saved. But also, I think they just think Ryan Gosling's a good actor, and they think, hey, he can make a good movie.
Yeah, he's pretty good. So 5 or 6 years after The Rise of Skywalker, the question here is this enough time for Disney to have pretended the sequels never happened? Or is this proof positive, perhaps, that all the rumors about the sequel trilogy being decanonized and wiped out were maybe, in fact, a lie?
Yes. No. This is the movie where Ryan Gosling is going to find the world between worlds and make it so that the sequel trilogy never happened.
Yep. Yeah, he'll go back. He'll go through the door. He'll go back. He'll find Kathleen Kennedy in a different continuity, in a different universe in the multiverse. And he'll obviously unalive her, and then he will take her body back to the Star Wars universe and puppet her like a marionette puppet and say, "I'm sorry, guys, for ruining your childhood." Yeah. And that'll be the movie. Weekend at Bernie's style. Yes. That was a joke, by the way. Kathleen Kennedy, I know that you watch these shows because you personally write checks to us, as we've been accused.
True.
Yeah. If you could cast anyone in a Star Wars movie, who would it be? Other than Ryan Gosling?
Anyone?
And why is it Pedro Pascal?
Pedro Pascal's already going to be in a Star Wars movie.
I know.
I'm going to have to think about that one.
Kathleen Kennedy.
Maybe.
As a cameo?
I was going to say Evan Moss Backrack, but he's already been in Andor.
Yeah, right. Did his character survive?
I don't think so. Pretty sure he got shot.
Oh man, yeah, we're gonna talk about. Here in a second. We're gonna talk about the new Andor trailer.
But first,
when that dropped though, my partner John and I are like, well, looks like it's time to watch Andor again because we've seen it twice already, and I just fucking love it. I'll report back on the Moss Backrack thing when we've watched it again. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about
long-standing perpetual rumor.
Let's talk about a topic that Star Wars fans all agree on and have nice, humane conversations and discourse about.
There's no disagreement on this subject. That's a complete lie. We're talking about Kathleen Kennedy.
Beloved figure in the Star Wars leadership, Kathleen Kennedy, was apparently reported to be close to retirement.
Well, there were rumors
a few days ago. Yeah,
there were rumors that she was retiring,
right?
/ being forced out. But.
Those rumors got picked up by some pretty big outlets. Mm-hmm. I think like Deadline got a hold of it, and Hollywood Reporter and shit. Which. To what extent can you even trust, those things? I don't even know. But so she did an interview a few days later, and it was like, guys, I'm not
quitting.
Yeah, I'm not retiring. Like maybe in a year. So this is the thing.
Maybe in many years. Yes. Like we've sort of talked about a succession internally, but like it's not happening.
Right. And okay, so here's some cold hard facts for you. Mm-hmm. Kathleen Kennedy is 71 years old.
Okay.
It would be perfectly reasonable for her to retire.
Yeah.
Because people her age, that's their next
generally
step.
don't work anymore.
Yeah, they retire and then they die or whatever. Now we know, of course, the what makes this whole situation funny is that the Mike Zeros and the Kathleen Kennedy or the Star Wars series of the world,
Doomcocks and et al.
Have been peddling this lie for years.
They've been screaming for like a decade that Kathleen Kennedy is about to retire.
Right. Or more specifically is forced out. And then when that didn't end up happening,
they just went on to the next lie and counted on everyone to forget about it.
Well, they also did the thing where they did a post hoc rationalization where they're like, oh well, she's not publicly fired, but she's not actually in control of it. It's like when President Biden won the election and they're like, oh well, actually Trump's the president and he's leading the military and he's actually calling the shots and Biden is just a figurehead. It's a lot like that because as we know, the Star Wars theories and the Mike Zeros of the world are the Star Wars QAnon, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was their next thing was, oh, well, Kathleen Kennedy hasn't been fired, but she's not actually running anything. She's a figurehead.
They've taken the keys away from grandma.
Right. And then the second this comes out, they're like, oh, she was ruining Star Wars the whole time, and they're finally firing her. And then 2 days later, Kathleen is like, you guys are a bunch of fucking idiots.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go make out with Brie Larson.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they had... So here's the thing. I think she should retire. And this isn't because, look, I come to despise people that make me defend Hollywood producers because they're generally not great people, right? At the very least, Kathleen Kennedy has seen some shit that she hasn't blown the whistle on. And that in itself is crime enough, right? Mm-hmm. That being said, people generally and sometimes willfully misunderstand what her job is. And she's become a figurehead of, and let's be honest about it, these are right-wingers, for the most part, right-wingers, who have kind of installed Kathleen Kennedy in their mind as the boogeyman of all the things, like that represents all the things that they don't like to see in media, which is that they would like all media for all time to be white men. And Kathleen Kennedy is the opposite of that. She's the one bringing the gays and the blacks and all this other shit into Star Wars.
And women, they don't like, right? Gasp, women.
Right. Now, I think she should retire, though, because she's been at Lucasfilm for 13 years, which is, I think, a good tenure. Yes, their output in Star Wars has been a mixed bag. I think that would have been true regardless of who was running Lucasfilm.
I agree.
I don't think that any one person should stay in a position like that for more than 10 years anyway. I think that, like, while institutional memory is important, it's a good idea to get fresh ideas every so often. And I think the same thing about nonprofit organizations too. I don't think any one person should be in charge for more than a decade.
I think in a more creative oriented position, I think I would agree with you. But honestly, Kathleen Kennedy's job is mostly just to hire people and cut checks.
Yeah, she makes sure the trains run on time.
Yeah.
And that's what she loves doing. I mean, she's always done that.
She's really, really good at it.
Yeah.
Like the reason Disney has kept her around as long as she has is that she makes them a shitload of money.
Yeah. Despite the mixed bag of Star Wars content, Star Wars has made more money than it's lost. And we know that.
A lot more.
And I know some people are going to cite, I mean, I know Disney Plus lost a bunch of subscribers. We learned that from a quarterly earnings call, I think. But streaming services across the board have been losing subscribers. And it's because they fuck those numbers anyway. And so like the numbers aren't even real. So like when they say, oh, we have X number of subscribers, it's like, no, you don't. You don't have that many people or subscribers.
They watch, these many billion hours. No, you fucked with those numbers.
Yeah, right. Because they don't let anyone see them or anything.
Just trust us, bro. It's totally real.
So like they've made all their money back from the purchase because they bought it for $4 billion, and I think they made that much money back just from Disney World.
I think they made that much back from like just The Force Awakens. Like The Force Awakens made a shitload of money.
Yeah, it did make $4 billion. But when you tie in the merchandise, like, because there was a lot of merchandise happening right when that movie came out, it wouldn't have made $4 billion. But I mean, Force Awakens made more than $1 billion just on its own at the box office, plus the toys and stuff. Probably got it to $2 billion, I bet, at least. And between that and Disney, and I mean, I don't care what you think about Star Wars: The Last Jedi, it made tons of money. It didn't make quite as much as Force Awakens. That's also because Force Awakens was the first Star Wars movie since 2005, and people were freaking the fuck out about it. And Rise of Skywalker, which is a movie I did not particularly enjoy, still made a lot of money. And you see how I did that? Like, there's a thing that I don't like, but I don't just change the facts because I don't like it. Like, it's a fact. It made more money than they spent on production. And that is just a fact. And I know we live in a world where like those kinds of things aren't so important anymore. So what I'm saying is that Star Wars has made more money than the money that was spent on acquiring it. And
more money than the money that's been spent on expanding it.
Yes. And I think I would think that even the poorest performing Star Wars movie still was profitable. It might not have been as profitable as other Star Wars films, but I don't think that there is one that was not profitable, which means that Kathleen Kennedy did her job. That's what her job is to do, right? And she doesn't really have as much to do with the creative input as people think. Real quick though, let's say in a year she decides to retire. Who do you think takes over? Because I know that in the fandom, like there are like two names that kind of go around.
I don't think it's going to be Dave Filoni.
I don't think so either, despite him being one of the names.
Yeah, because number one, I don't think he wants that job. And
no.
And number two, I think he's way too valuable as a creative person.
Yeah, I think that's what he likes doing. The other name is Jon Favreau, which is something he actually would enjoy doing because he's a producer. He does kind of the same job. Like I know he's acted in shit. He's like directed in other movies and stuff. But
he's very much a producer.
Yeah, and I think he would probably do a pretty good job. The problem is that he's also kind of.
Is he also involved in Marvel?
A lot. Him and Kevin Feige are kind of doing the Marvel thing as well.
So. I think if they did get Favreau, I would hope that they would like ease him down on the Marvel side so that he can actually focus on Lucasfilm.
Yeah, and if you guys want to talk about a franchise with lukewarm direction right now, let's talk about Marvel.
The MCU is due for some executive shakeups, I think. I want to bring up one particular line from this interview because it made me laugh.
Sure.
The interviewer asks about, what projects do you have going that you think you're going to get to the finish line? And Kathleen Kennedy says, quote, "Well, I keep waiting for Taika Waititi, and he's busy working with another writer now. I think if we ever do get a script from Taika, it's going to be fantastic." And I read that and I was just like, holy shit, woman.
That was this man said he was going to turn in his homework and he's not done it yet. So
he said he was going to turn this in like a month ago and I haven't seen it.
A year ago, probably. Yeah. Or it's all been an inside joke between Taika Waititi and Kathleen Kennedy. And
which is a thing I could see Taika Waititi doing.
That's really funny. Yeah. She's like, "Oh, I gotta do a passive aggressive thing in this deadline interview to get this man to turn in a script." All right, let's move on. A really exciting thing.
Andor trailer.
Yeah, the really exciting thing happened. Try to think toward the beginning of the week.
I think it was Monday or something.
Yep. Got a new Andor season 2 trailer, which I thought looked absolutely fantastic.
Yep.
And there's some details we're going to go through real quick. Some major kind of story beats that I kind of could glean from the trailer. And some interesting release structure for this show, which is very strange. The one thing I'll say off the top, that the musical choice for this trailer, I know some people didn't like it on social media, but I thought it was amazing. And I was talking to my partner about this, where I think this trailer would have been cut the same way regardless.
Yeah.
But in today's political climate, didn't it feel a little different?
Just a little bit.
Where you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to join that rebellion. Oh, fuck yes, let's do it. And that's kind of the sense I got from it. It just made me, it was like, oh man, this is like the rebellion against the bad guys.
Yeah.
And like that for Americans today, at least for the reasonable ones. I think that's like, that was, in the immortal words of Marva, fuck the Empire, right? So
one other big picture thing about the trailer I really liked, they made a big point of saying how critically acclaimed the first season was. Mm-hmm. Just like, I'm certain that was just to stick it to the worst people in the world.
Oh, sure.
Says, oh, no one likes it. There's bricks and screws in my Star Wars. Yeah.
Which they'll never admit to. You give them all the viewership data in the world and they still won't. They won't admit it. So one thing that sticks out of me, a very strange release schedule for this show. They're going to be 12 episodes, and they're going to be released in 4 batches of 3 episodes. So 3 episodes will air on April 22nd, 3 episodes will air on April 29th, and then March 6th, and then May 13th.
Okay.
Which is very strange to me.
Those are all Tuesdays.
Yeah. And it makes me wonder if the 3 of those episodes end up adding up to...
Well, you remember season 1, like the first 3 episodes were sort of a story arc.
Yeah.
And then there was like, I think 2 episodes that were sort of a story arc.
Yep.
There was that intermission and then like 2 more 3-episode story arcs.
Yeah.
So it's very much in keeping with the structure of the show that we know so far.
The thing is, they didn't release them 3 episodes at a time.
They did not.
And the episodes in season 1, each one of them were quite long. When you
like an hour long, yeah.
So I wonder, are they going to do 3 1-hour-long episodes, or like 45-minute hour episodes, or is it just going to be 3 like 20-minute episodes?
I hope they go long.
I hope they do too. I don't know. I've never seen this release schedule for a Star Wars thing, and I'm kind of weirded out by it. We do know that the April 22nd batch is going to take place at around 4 BBY. Mm-hmm. April 29th is going to be 3 BBY. The 3-episode thing on the 6th will be 2 BBY. So everything is going up to Rogue One pretty much. And it does seem like this will be the last, like there won't be another Andor.
Well, yeah, I mean, we know how this story ends.
Right.
Because we saw Rogue One.
And not only do we know how it ends for Cassian Andor, we also know how it ends for people like Luthen, because we don't see him in Star Wars. So that dude, I think he's on the chopping block this season. And I got to tell you, I'm kind of excited to see it. Because there's no way that
no way he goes quietly.
Yeah, like Luthen fucks some shit up on the way out.
He's gonna blow up a lot of stuff.
So it does look like they're going to be delving into the Gorman massacre, which is a thing that's hinted at in Rebels. But it's this moment. It's a tragedy that radicalizes Mon Mothma like fully radicalizes her into,
because she was already dipping her toes into radicalism.
Oh, she was wading in. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this massacre causes her to address the Senate and call Palpatine a despot publicly. And as you know,
that could not have gone well.
Yeah,
for
that's a good way to get disappeared, right? And in fact, that was her last speech to the Senate. And we don't know much about the events. We know that it was something very, very harrowing, and it looks like we get a couple of shots of that event from the trailer where there are Imperials just unloading into a group of unarmed civilians. And so like that's going to be, oh man, that's going to be dark, I bet.
Yeah.
We see Saw Gerrera looking a little closer to his Rogue One appearance. And I'm glad that Forrest Whitaker is back for this because I love him. K2SO is obviously going to, I don't think we see him in the trailer, right?
I don't.
But we know he's showing up. Yeah. Like he's got to show up somewhere. Big.
I just want to go back to Forrest Whitaker for a second. He does such a great job of playing Saw Gerrera as this guy who's just gradually coming unhinged because of how much he fucking hates the Empire.
Dude, I love that speech he gives. Like he gives like a speech to that guy, and he like grabs onto him. He's like, "Remember this feeling. We're about to go fucking die for the rebellion. Yeah. Don't ever forget this." Yeah. And the dude's like, "I was pissing my pants, but actually it does feel kind of cool."
Yeah.
I love that fucking he's such a guerrilla fighter, and the like guys, we're gonna go die, but you know what, like don't ever forget how fucking exciting this is, you know. It's like you can tell that's a pep talk to a group of people who are thinking about whether or not maybe they're ready to die, right? Another big appearance in the trailer, Orson Krennic has returned, has overseeing the construction of the Death Star, which is a little less finished, obviously, than in Rogue One.
Played by Ben Mendelsohn, once again.
And I'm curious to know because you know that there's going to be some dynamic between him and Deirdre,
yeah.
And the guy that wants Deirdre to step on his ball sack, Kyle.
No.
Karn.
Yes, that was.
Is his name not Kyle?
It's not. What's his name? Well, in the comments, put the name of the guy who moves back to Coruscant and lives in his mom's apartment and eats cereal while she is passive aggressive at him.
That's a very specific. Hold on, because I'm gonna look this up because I want to know. I know what
Cyril.
It is. Cyril Karn. Yeah. Deidre was correct, by the way.
As long as we're talking about Rogue One characters, you know, what's her name's the main character chick? Her dad is in the very first scene of Rogue One. I wonder if they're getting that guy back. Because
wait, say that again.
Rogue One.
Okay, yeah, I've seen it.
Main character, the
Cassian Andor. You mean Jyn Erso.
Jyn Erso, yeah.
Oh, Galen
Erso.
Okay,
yeah, I'm wondering if they're going to get that actor back because like he had a pretty big part in building the Death Star, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean he designed it.
Yeah.
So also a fun little tidbit that is the actor that plays Thrawn in live action, that is his brother.
Oh.
They're both the Mikkelsen boys.
Okay.
So Lars Mikkelsen is the guy that plays
right, and Lars and Mads.
Yeah, Mads Mikkelsen is the guy that plays, and they're both fantastic actors. Yeah.
It's funny, like there's only like 2 bits of voiceover in this entire trailer. Like one of them is the Forrest Whitaker speech, and then there's one with Cassian Andor saying, "We're in a war. Do you want to fight or do you want to fucking win?"
Right. Yeah. It's dude,
which perfectly sums up the Cassian Andor we saw in Rogue One.
Yeah.
At least.
I got to be real honest with you, man. Like the last couple of months, that trailer hit a thing in me that I didn't quite know was there, and it's one of those things where it was like, God damn, do we need a Saw Gerrera? Like, holy shit. Like, we need that so bad. Like, we need our own Saw Gerrera. We need our own Luthen. Like,
to the FBI agent who is watching this, we are not endorsing the idea of rebellion against the United States government.
No, we're not.
Anyway, let's talk more about this trailer.
Well, actually, I think we're about done with
it. There is that one goofy scene where like Mon Mothma's in the center of this like folk dance or something, and everyone.
Oh, that was really. She was like dancing her fucking ass off.
It looks really cool. I'm assuming that's like back on her homeworld somewhere.
Oh, sure. I think it's at her daughter's
Chandrilla?
wedding.
Oh, or that.
Yeah, I think it's at her daughter's wedding.
Oh, yeah, her daughter's arranged wedding.
Yeah, she's a trad wife now.
Yeah.
By the way, I think this is the season where Mon Mothma kills her husband.
Well, I mean, there isn't going to be another season.
I think that's what's going to happen, and you heard it here first. This is how it's going to go.
She's going to put.
Hold on. She's going to find out that like he's caught on to what she's doing and has like told someone in the Empire, and she's going to put a pillow over his head and a pistol and be like, and just be like,
just pop him.
Yeah, the rebellion sends its regards.
Right.
I'm here for it. Nick says Rebellion looks so much fun. Right? That's what I'm saying. Like after that trailer, sign me the fuck up. Okay, so we got to switch gears a little bit.
Severance time?
Yeah, we got to talk.
It's Severance.
Yeah, got to talk about Severance. This is that moment where I tell everyone, like, obviously this isn't Star Wars, but this is a show I've come to care about so much, and it's such quality regardless of what your interests are, that like I think there's something in this show that will interest everyone. So go and watch it. Make sure you start with the first season. Someone asked me the other day, they're like, so could you just like jump into the second season? It's like no. You need to watch the first season, and that's fine because the first season is fucking really awesome.
Fucking good, yeah.
And somehow every episode of this second season has been an improvement on the one before it. And I don't know how they sustain this kind of let me say that I don't ordinarily call out cinematographers. This episode 7, was directed by the show's cinematographer.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Jessica Lee Gagne, I think. Jessica Lee Gagne. And you can tell that a cinematographer directed this episode. And they're like...
Just like the scene transitions are done.
Everything. Everything from like scene transitions, there are
to the little details that they deliberately show you in shots, like as they're walking, as characters are walking down a hallway, and they turn the camera to show you like plaques outside of doors.
There are certain sequences that are shot on film, and certain sequences that aren't. And this, mark my words, this is an award-winning episode. And if I were to make a list of some of the best episodes of TV that we've ever seen, this would be on like the top 5 list, up with the Nick Offerman episode from The Last of Us, and probably the season finale of Severance season 1. It was just, it's absolutely stunning. Now we're going to spoil it.
Yes.
So if you've not seen it, go and watch it.
If you haven't seen it, what are you doing with your life? Yeah. Honestly, like go watch Severance. It's fantastic.
Yeah. In a world full of like disappointing mid content on different streaming platforms, we have this fucking jewel that, and I feel like more people know about it now than they did during episode 1 or season 1. But like, if you've not checked out Severance yet, it is insanely good. So we're going to spoil it. You've been warned. This episode is called Shake Bardo. Shake Bardo.
Okay.
It's basically, it's a Buddhist thing. So like the Buddhists consider life as a series of stages. There are 6 stages. 3 of them are different stages of life. 3 of them are different stages of death.
Okay.
And Shake Bardo is the first of the death stages, right?
Okay.
So the thing I love about this too is that all we've seen of Gemma so far, most of it has been just as Miss Casey.
Yeah.
And it's funny that I like that actor as Miss Casey weirded me out a lot because she's so bizarre and strange.
She does a lot of the same things the Miss Huang actress does.
Yes. Oh, that's a really good point, actually. seeing her as Gemma, I think for the first time in the show so far, I didn't realize how gracefully beautiful that actor is, and how amazing. I should have assumed that she was amazing just based on how she could give you kind of the creeps in the first season.
But she's able to play Gemma as this so warm and compassionate and human. And that's like a total 180 from Miss Casey, who's this almost robotic,
emotionally inexperienced. Yeah, it was funny because she's like in charge of wellness, and shit. It's very weird. But so she we get a shot of her walking across Gans College, which is where she and Mark taught, and this is before she met Mark. But
this is in fact the day she meets Mark.
Exactly. They do a little meet cute. And
so they're at a blood drive,
right? And by the way, Lumen fucking logos on everything, on all the blood shit, like big red flag. I don't know what the fuck Lumen's doing. And after this episode, it's funny how they answered some questions, but then you're like, oh, hold on, because now I have a lot more questions. Which, by the way, this episode has 2 enormous Lost references in it that you can tell. It's one of the things I love so much about this show is that it wears its inspiration on its sleeve, and you can tell that the showrunners adore Lost. And when we get to them, I will call them up.
So Mark is sitting there giving blood, and Gemma comes over and sits down. And
he's grading papers.
Gets hooked up.
Yeah,
they're both like reading, their students' homework, and they start. And Mark's like, "Hey, what you got there?" And she's like, "It's this shitty essay." One of
Tolstoy.
Yeah.
And
he's like, "What do you got there?" And he's like, "Oh, this is it's more shitty. It's a weed reference.
It's a paper by one of his students called All Quiet on the Western Blunt." And I laughed my fucking ass off when he said that, because I tell you, if I had a student that had the balls to turn something like that in, and if it was a good paper, I would be like, "Oh hell yeah, you're going somewhere, kid." He says the line that is coming back more and more in every episode, which is, "Who are you?" I think in this instance he says, "Who are you again?" But it's this like returning motif. Like the first season opens with Helly waking up on the table and hearing a voice saying, "Who are you?" And it's the same question that PD asks Mark when he was severed, and it's this like recurring question about identity that they keep bringing up, and it's really cool. So like this cuts to Gemma getting her blood taken at Lumen.
Yes.
Somewhere in the bowels of Lumen.
Really cool transitions I was talking about. Like you can tell the director / cinematographer thought a lot about how she wanted to get between scenes.
Which, by the way, I mentioned this before, but all these flashbacks of Mark and Gemma's time together are shot on like film, and it gives them these like really warm, fuzzy, like almost home movie kind of feel to them.
Nostalgia.
Yeah, and it's such a brilliant way to distinguish those moments in time from the other moments later on.
Very sterile, digital, Lumen
everything's
control.
Very cool. Like all the lighting is very cool. Yeah. So she was obviously daydreaming about this memory, and a nurse asks her, she's like, "Hey, where did you go?" And she's like obviously remembering Mark. And there's a transition to, speaking of Mark is on his couch.
Passed the fuck out.
And I like how, so at the end of the last episode, he collapsed, and a doctor that his sister Devin never met came up out of his basement.
Was just living in his basement.
And,
came up.
And she's like, there's so many things that his sister's like, what the fuck is happening right now? And so Dr. Ragabi. And so she asks her, she's like, so we should call an ambulance. And she's like, no, we should not. And she's like, why? Because this seems to me, and I'm not a doctor, I'm sorry. Are you a doctor, by the way? And she doesn't answer, I noticed. Which now makes me wonder, do they have...
I mean, she's probably not board certified.
She's putting chips in people's brains, and this
Well, she's modifying the chips.
Well, no, she's the one that puts the chips in too.
Is she?
She's there when Helly gets her chip at the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure if you're here for Severance and I'm wrong about the detail, put it in the chat. She confirms to Devin that Gemma is alive, and this stops Devin cold in her tracks because I think Devin suspected it, and I think she believes it.
Yeah.
But to have it confirmed by like someone deep in Lumen, she was like, "Holy shit!"
Oh.
So Gemma continues this medical exam at Lumen, and like they're taking all her vitals, they're taking her blood pressure. Did you notice that there are two those eyesight charts on the wall? There's one that starts with E, and it so there's the one with the letters.
Yeah.
Did you see what the right one was?
I did not.
It was all goats. I'm not kidding.
I believe you.
There's a big goat, and the goats just get smaller, and they're in different orientations all over the place. What is it with this show on goats? I do not understand. Okay, so Gemma then takes a test holding two stones, and they hook a thing up to her called a woe meter.
I think this is supposed to be a lie detector or something?
No. This is Scientology. This is the auditing, the Scientology auditing where they measure your fate.
How many alien space ghosts you have.
Right. And no, we didn't just make that up. That is what Scientologists believe. They're fucking crazy. And that's what this feels like, because Scientology is just like the thing they use is it just detects electromagnetism, and it doesn't mean anything. It's a needle that moves when you touch it. Yeah. Which, by the way, L. Ron Hubbard knew it was bullshit. He knew his entire religion was bullshit. In fact, said beforehand the best way to get incredibly rich would be to make a new religion, and that's exactly what he did. So they're asking her a bunch of questions while she's holding these stones. For example, if you were caught in a mudslide, would you be more afraid of drowning or suffocating? And it made me think, like, is this a question about her car accident? And her answer like peaks the woe meter, because I think she says drowning would probably be better. Yeah. Anyway, she's asked how many doors she's visited.
Oh, she asks how many doors she's going to visit.
Oh, going to visit. Correct. Yeah. Right. And she says 6. And then they show her to her outfit. And then I think she realizes what door she's going to end up going to. And I was like, motherfucker, yeah. So the nurse takes her down the hallway. There are many doors, all with labels, each of them referring to files MDR are working on. So there's like Sienna and Allentown, and I think, was it Wellington is the one she goes into? Yeah. So they all the doors correspond with all the files the refiners are working on, which is another level of what the fuck.
Yeah.
So they get to...
So the one bit of... like the one bit of underlying logic to all this that I could at least think of, Cold Harbor, the thing, the Mark's big project,
his current file, yeah,
that is also the name of a battle in the Civil War.
There are a lot of references to battles in the Civil War,
and I was looking through a couple of them. Like some of the names of the rooms on here are also.
They're all locations. They're all locations.
They're all locations. Yeah. Some of them had Civil War battles. I have no idea if that's relevant or not, and that's part of what makes Severance great.
Yeah. By the way, the doors on this floor in Lumen are not controlled by key cards. They're controlled by little blood pricks.
Yeah, little hand pads where the nurse like puts her hand up there and it
takes a little sample.
Takes a little sample of her blood. She's like, motherfucker.
I did not realize until this episode that Lumen was into blood so much, but they apparently are.
I mean, they're a cult. Of course they're into blood.
So this starts a very uncomfortable sequence with a dentist.
Well, first off, Gemma walks in and there's the ding and she's
severed.
And she's severed.
Right.
And when she walks in there, like the Gemma who's in there is not very happy to be there.
Right. If you think about it from her perspective, she just finished a dental exam. And even though it's apparently been 6 weeks later, for her, that just happened.
Yeah. And this is the fascinating thing because I'm pretty sure every single room has a different severed persona on Gemma's chip for it.
I think you are right. And every room seems to be some really horrific situation to put her in. And why? I don't fucking know. So she asked, she's like, "Can I get a fucking break?" And he's like, "I mean,
you had a break.
Yeah, it's been 6 weeks. So
she's
down.
Like, I was just here yesterday, motherfucker. And like, I just left."
Yeah, I think most people are meant to cringe at this because I've never met a person who enjoys dentist visits.
Oh, fun thing. The dentist, when he walks in, is the same guy as from a previous episode who was
that went to go get the dental tools.
Going to get the tools.
Yes.
And then went to the elevator.
So he's weird. He speaks strangely. He's got serious serial killer vibes. His name's Dr. Maurer. And I think he's obsessed with Gemma. I'm pretty sure.
Maybe.
So after the appointment, she leaves with a sore jaw, and then they walk past a door that says Cold Harbor. So meanwhile, Mark is still unconscious on the couch. Devon's watching over him. She calls him Milady because they have this cute little thing where he calls her my lord. She calls him Milady. Why? I don't know. Siblings have weird shit like this. So Mark is having a memory visiting Gemma at work, and he gives her an ant farm, which it seems like he purposefully misunderstood when she said she loved plants as I love ants.
Maybe.
Yeah. And it's really cute. It's the thing I love so much about this episode is seeing Gemma and Mark interact when they were together before her apparent death.
Because like up to this point, we've only seen Mark Scout, not Mark S, after he's already like gone through and is still going through the trauma of having lost his wife. Yeah. And now all of a sudden we're seeing why happy. That was so traumatic.
Right.
Because their life was pretty good.
And they, there's a lot of shit. So Mark has bought a baby crib. And it's some wishful thinking because it's very clear that they're going to be trying for a baby. There's this incredible time lapse where they're you can tell it's an academic's house because there are stacks of books and papers everywhere, and the stacks change, and it's so fucking cool. And they have I think perhaps my favorite scene in this entire episode, which is a lunch that Devon and Rickon, her husband Rickon, and Mark and Gemma have.
And everyone's like, Rickon, you're so fucking weird.
Yeah, because apparently Rickon's a really good mountain climber and like climbed Everest or something.
I guess.
I don't know. I mean, we contain multitudes, I guess. Devon goes to pour Gemma some wine, and a lesser show would have had some dialogue here. But Gemma just holds a hand over her glass. And Devon immediately realizes what it means.
Well, she says, "You're not drinking." Gemma shakes her head, and like that, they just kind of look at each other.
Yes, and it's this.
And Devon's like, "Get the fuck out of here!"
This like, the acting here is so good. It's so understated, and it's a beautiful moment between the two of them. And I love how they're showing that, like, yes, Mark was in love with her, and they had this incredible relationship, but the four of them were very close, and Devon loved Gemma quite a bit as well. And she realizes that she's pregnant. And
wonderful part of the scene, by the way, while Devon and Gemma are having this tender moment. Yeah, Mark and Rickon are just arguing about mountain climbing or some shit.
Right. Yeah, and you can tell Mark's whole thing is like, oh, for fuck's sake, this guy.
Yeah. How did you trick my sister into marrying?
They do seem to genuinely like each other, though. So I just that like Devon's actor in this scene executes this narrative so masterfully that it like this. I went back and watched this scene twice, and it's just like, just fucking wow, so good. So Gemma miscarries, and there's this beautiful scene of them in the shower together after she figures it out, and then at the end of the scene, the water that's falling is falling in reverse, and it's this crazy shot. And then we get a glimpse of Miss Casey visiting MDR, like the first time we met her, which is after Helly tried to unalive herself, and Helly tried to go to the Backstreet Boys reunion tour. Yeah, and Miss Casey's there to make sure she doesn't, you know. And it's word for word what is said in that episode in season 1. And this is okay. So this is when crazy shit really starts to happen. We discover that each of the MDR refiners are being watched, each by a dedicated Lumen employee who looks kind of like them.
Yeah.
And I do not understand why. And this is one of those.
Oh, this is the The ghosts from
the shadows
from the Ortbo.
I'm not sure they're the same actors. We should look into it.
Yeah,
because I'm not sure that they might be the same actors.
It's just you pointing out that they look similar that got me thinking that.
We should look into it and see if they're the same actors, because they very well might be. Yeah. So this is the first of two like huge Lost references, because if you've seen Lost, this isn't gibberish to you. They find a hatch where they have to press a button, and they continue pressing the button for no reason, and they find out later on that there's a station somewhere else on the island watching them press the button, and it was just a study that was happening. Yeah. And it's very that, right? So that whole thing is insane, and I don't even know where to start with it, so we're gonna leave it there. Drummond asks, are the Severance barriers holding? And Maurer is with him wearing a gym teacher costume, because what the fuck? And he's like, oh yeah, by the way, Gemma really likes me. And Drummond's like, she tried to break your fingers. I don't think that's true. So Gemma and Mark go to a fertility clinic, and there is a blink and you miss it Dr. Maurer appearance.
Oh.
When they walk by, he walks past them and he stops and stares straight at Gemma.
I didn't catch that was who it was, but in retrospect, it makes sense why he was like so clearly in that frame.
Yes. So she fills out the intake form. They smash cut to a Lumen room that matches it's that like when as Mark is reintegrating, like they use smash cuts to different rooms and shit. We're gonna have to move this along, by the way. I don't think we're gonna get to Invincible tonight. We had too much Star Wars news. So Mark and Gemma are trying this IVF thing. I think he's giving her injections, which in retrospect, it's probably a Lumen medication, which what the fuck, even like, is that even safe?
Is anything Lumen does safe?
There is this heartbreaking line about not only are they really counting on this kid happening, but Mark has already decided in his mind that they're going to have a daughter, and refers to her when referring to their future child. And Gemma, so present day, I presume Gemma sits down in an X-ray machine that's like on the side. It's very strange. But Dr. Maurer asks how many rooms she's been in today, and asks if she's felt any despair, fervor, or gaiety, which, as we know, are weird Lumen things, right? Gemma mentioned, she's like, hey, what the fuck is that Cold Harbor thing? It's
like, the only room I've never been in.
And she's like, what happens when I visit all the rooms? And he says, you will see the world again, and the world will see you. And she's like, okay, but will I see Mark again? And he says, Mark will benefit from the world you're siring. Kier will take away all of his pain as he's taken away yours. And she's like, that was not an answer to my question. And for once in your fucking life, can you please talk to me like a normal fucking person? And he looks at her and he says, good night, Gemma. Dream sweet. And you're like, why would you say that? Why would you say it wrong like that? I just don't understand. Lumen employees are so weird.
Everyone at Lumen talks so strangely.
Bizarre. It's so weird.
Like it must be part of their cult program or something.
Gemma's pregnancy test turns up negative. And so apparently the IVF has failed. There's a scene where Devin wants to call Miss Cobell, and Ragabi's like, you can't do that. She's insane. And I quote, Cobell was raised by Lumen and is a soldier.
I don't think she's being literal about the soldier thing. I think it's more that she's just a true believer zealot.
Well, what she says, she's Lumen through and through.
Yes.
So I'm not even sure if that's true. I don't know. We haven't seen Cobell in a couple of episodes.
That's true.
So I'm not really sure. Gemma in the past is looking at some cards. One of them is the one that Dylan stole with the karate move, you know?
Yeah.
And she's doing this like mail-in thing, and she's interpreting the card as ego death, which is that first death stage in Buddhism. They have a little argument, and you can tell that the stress over their failed conception is kind of getting to them a little bit. Mark suggests maybe they stop trying. And then there's another insane Lost reference where Gemma dresses up in this fucking fly blue suit. She looks like she's walking straight out of the 80s.
Yeah.
Enters a room and finds herself on a crashing plane. And the flight attendant, who is Dr. Maurer, is flung up into the ceiling, which is almost shot for shot exactly a scene from Lost when the
plane crashes.
When the plane crashes, right? So, along with the flight attendant going up into the fucking thing and everything,
So one theory I saw about this whole episode is that like all the rooms are supposed to be these painful, traumatic things,
terrible things, yeah.
And Gemma is like a test pilot for a new type of severance that lets you just like not experience them.
I don't know, dude. So they're very obviously trying to gauge whether or not dread skips through the chip, where like one severed person, like it's the feeling is so intense that the outie feels it as well, and it doesn't seem like it does. She has so. We won't go through all of these. There's a scene where she writes 1 billion thank you cards. And you can tell when she's done, her hand hurts, and like when she goes to the dentist, when she's done, her jaw hurts. But she doesn't appear to have.
Doesn't have any of the mental impacts of these situations.
So there's this heartbreaking shot of Mark disassembling the baby cradle, and it's really hard to watch because you can tell there's like a tumbler, like he's clearly a little drunk. And
it's another one of those wonderful understated sequences where they let the actors just act.
Yeah,
there's no lines.
Yeah, you don't even need
a little bit of
background
music, but you're just watching these two people act.
Mauer visits Gemma in her room, and she's like, "I want to go home." And he's like, "Well, Mark has remarried and moved on and has a daughter."
And she's like, "That's bullshit."
Yeah. First of all, fuck you. That's not true. But also, what a harrowing lie to tell.
Yeah,
that they're trying so hard to have a daughter. That he would say that. And so as a thank you, Gemma knocks his ass out with a chair.
Knocks him out, steals his key card, goes running for the elevator.
Right. And another big twist in this episode is she goes up the elevator and severs into Mrs. Casey.
Goes into the severed floor. Right. She's walking down the hallway about to get to the door, and fucking Milchick opens the door and says, "Hey, Miss Casey."
Turn the fuck back around. Yeah. Which, by the way, fuck Milchick. Yeah. Like, fuck being the guy that's at the end of the hallway. They tried to humanize him in previous episodes. Fuck Milchick. Like, this dude, I hope he gets what's coming to him. I don't care if he has a crisis of faith and decides to do the right thing. Like, you've done too much damage already. And so is Cobell, by the way. Yeah. So there's a shot of Mark being first of all, their last moment together, Mark and Gemma's last moment together, is she's going to a charades party, but he's got a lot of work. And on the way out, she says, "I love you." It's one of those things where he doesn't answer, but it's not because he's upset or anything. He's just too busy. Like my partner John and I do this sometimes, where like, we'll say "I love you," and the other person's kind of like in the middle. It's not like there's no question in either of our minds that has changed. Yeah. It's just like we say it so often. Yeah. And he doesn't immediately answer, and then she doubles back and is like, "Mark, I love you." And he's like, "Oh, I love you too." Enjoy charades.
It's a inversion of earlier, where when she was leaving the card signing room, Dr. What's-His-Face said, "I love you," and she tries to walk in. He's like, "Ah."
Yeah, it's fucking gross.
It's gross.
Which, by the way, I was expecting him to do the Kier thing from that weird animated thing when Helly finishes her file in the first one, where he goes, I love you. It's so weird. So the cops visit Mark to tell him that Gemma has died. Current day Gemma goes back down the elevator.
And has a little bit of a breakdown in the elevator because she thought she was getting out. And
right.
Here she is.
Yep. The nurse takes her back to her room, which, by the way, this now confirms a very strange thing where her real identity is in the middle and she severs when she goes into the rooms. And I think as a way to make sure she never escapes, they sever her into a different thing when she goes up.
Yeah, that becomes Miss Casey.
Yeah. So, and it's just gross. It's so disgusting what they're doing. So Mark wakes up to a very anxious Devin. She asks where he went, and Mark has another memory of Gemma and just breaks down into tears. And it's really heartbreaking, and the episode ends on just Gemma's eyes. And like the guy that plays Mark, who's I first learned about him in Parks and Rec. Yeah. Is such this whole cast is so fucking unbelievable and amazing. And this look on his face at the end is just so believable and terrible. And now I'm wondering, is he fully integrated now? Like, does he just remember everything? Does he remember Miss Casey?
I guess we'll find out next
time.
Yeah,
the fact that he was with his wife and he had no fucking idea. Just the whole thing is insane. Other questions. Did she actually die? Was the car accident an actual car accident? Like just a freak of nature occurrence, or was it orchestrated? Did they fake it? Because Mark mentions identifying a body in one of the previous episodes. Was that fake? Did they resurrect her? Is Miss Wong their fucking kid? And they just found a way to enhance her growth so she's a teenager now for whatever reason. All of it's so fucking weird, and I love it. And I think part of the reason that I love it is because so much of the story is such a fucking tragedy that it makes you feel shit. And you're like, if I have to watch Mark go through any more of this trauma, I might die. I hope this ends with him walking away from the Lumen building and just exploding in the background, right? So, okay, we got to go. This is the end of the show. We cut it a little too close with time tonight. I'm so sorry. We will be back here playing some Battlefront in a couple seconds, so come and join us then. Say hi in the comments as well. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.